There was a question that followed me for years. Not every day, not every week, but always when life became unbearably quiet. It would arrive after a failure, after a betrayal, after a dream slipped through my fingers, after watching someone else receive the very thing I had prayed for. 3 simple words. Why me? For the longest time, I believed I was searching for an answer. I wasn't. I was searching for justice. I remember watching an old man sitting alone on a wooden bench outside a hospital. He wasn't crying. He wasn't speaking. He simply stared at the ground as if the earth beneath him had quietly stolen something it had no right to take. People walked past him carrying flowers, reports, medicines, and hope. He carried nothing. I wondered what had happened. Maybe he had just lost someone. Maybe he had received news that would divide his life into 2 chapters. Before today and after today. I'll never know. But I remember thinking, there are moments when life doesn't merely hurt us, it confuses us. Because pain can often be explained, but unfairness cannot. As children, we inherit a beautiful illusion. We don't notice it because nobody ever tells us it's an illusion. They simply hand it to us piece by piece. If you're honest, people will trust you. If you're kind, kindness will return. Study hard and you'll succeed. Help others and they'll help you. Good things happen to good people. No one gathers us in a room and announces, "Today we're going to teach you that life is fair." Instead, fairness is woven into bedtime stories. The hero sacrifices everything and wins. The villain lies and loses. Every story whispers the same promise. The world keeps score. Even schools unknowingly reinforce it. You answer correctly, you receive marks. You work harder, you earn rewards. Action, then consequence. Everything follows an understandable pattern. Without realizing it, our young minds begin constructing something invisible. A contract, not on paper, not with ink, but with expectation. It quietly says, if I become a good person, life will eventually become good to me. It sounds harmless, perhaps even beautiful, but invisible contracts are the most dangerous ones because we never remember signing them. Years pass, we grow older, the contract grows with us. It simply changes its language. I stayed loyal, so I deserve loyalty. I worked 18-hour days, so I deserve success. I sacrificed my happiness, so someone should appreciate me. I never cheated anyone, so life shouldn't cheat me. Notice something. We almost never say these sentences out loud. They exist beneath consciousness, like software quietly running in the background, invisible, silent, yet influencing every emotion we feel. And perhaps that is why disappointment hurts so much, because disappointment is rarely just the absence of what we wanted. It is the collapse of what we expected. Think about your own life. Maybe there was someone you loved with complete sincerity. You remembered birthdays. You stayed when everyone else left. You forgave mistakes. You made sacrifices nobody noticed. Then one ordinary day, they walked away. At first, your heart asked, how could they? But somewhere much deeper, another voice whispered, this wasn't supposed to happen. That sentence reveals far more than we realize. It tells us we weren't only grieving the relationship, we were grieving the collapse of the invisible contract. I love sincerely, so love should have stayed. But life never signed that agreement, only we did. Or perhaps your story looks different. Maybe you spent years building a business. You missed weddings, ignored holidays, worked while others celebrated. believed that every sleepless night was another payment toward a guaranteed future. Then one economic downturn, one unexpected crisis, one decision beyond your control. Everything disappeared. People often describe moments like these by saying, "My whole world fell apart." But what really falls apart isn't the world. It's our understanding of how the world works. Psychologists have spent decades studying something remarkable. Across different cultures, different religions, different generations, human beings repeatedly display the same hidden assumption. They call it the just world hypothesis, a simple but powerful belief. Deep inside, most of us want to believe that the world is fundamentally fair, that good actions eventually produce good outcomes, and bad actions eventually receive bad consequences, not because we've proven it, but because we desperately need it to be true. Imagine waking up every morning believing that completely random suffering could reach anyone at any time for absolutely no reason. That thought is terrifying, so the human mind creates order. Order feels safer than chaos. Meaning feels safer than randomness. Even painful explanations often comfort us more than unanswered questions, because uncertainty is one of the hardest emotions the human brain has ever evolved to tolerate. Look carefully at everyday conversations. Someone loses their job. What did you do wrong? Someone becomes ill. Were they taking care of themselves? Someone's marriage ends. There must have been signs. Notice what we're doing. We're searching for causes. Sometimes there really are causes, but often we search even when none exist. Because if suffering always has an explanation, then perhaps suffering can always be avoided. And that thought allows us to sleep at night. It tells us, if I do everything correctly, that won't happen to me. But reality keeps refusing to follow our script. Healthy people become sick. Honest people get betrayed. Careful drivers meet reckless ones. Children lose parents. Parents lose children. Entire lives change because of a phone call received on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Not because someone deserved it, simply because life unfolded that way. And perhaps that is the hardest truth any human being ever has to meet. Not that life is cruel, but that life is often profoundly indifferent. It does not consult our plans before changing them. It does not examine our moral record before sending difficulty our way. It simply moves, like the ocean, sometimes calm, sometimes violent, never personal. Yet we almost always experience it personally, and that changes everything. Perhaps that's why the busiest people often carry the heaviest disappointments. Not because they work harder, but because somewhere along the way, they quietly began believing that life keeps receipts. Every extra hour, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every birthday they missed, every meal they skipped, every promise they postponed. Surely, they thought, all of this must count for something, and maybe it does, but not in the way we expect. Think about the language we use every day. I earned this. I deserve better. After everything I've done, none of these sentences are wrong. They're deeply human, but hidden inside each one is the same silent expectation that life behaves like an accountant, that every act of discipline earns a future reward, that every act of kindness creates a debt someone else will eventually repay. It's a comforting belief, until reality sends us an invoice we never expected. Imagine a young man named Arjun. There is nothing extraordinary about him. Perhaps that's why his story matters. He wakes before sunrise. He squeezes into a crowded bus. He spends hours at a desk under fluorescent lights. His coffee grows cold while answering emails that will be forgotten tomorrow. He dreams of building something meaningful. Every month he saves a little money Every month he postpones another dream. He tells himself, one day I'll travel. One day I'll buy a house. One day I'll spend more time with my parents. One day I'll finally breathe. His life becomes a staircase built entirely from tomorrows, and every step whispers the same promise. Keep climbing. Years pass. The promotion goes to someone else. The company restructures. His father falls ill. Inflation quietly eats his savings. The relationship he spent years nurturing slowly fades into silence. None of these events arrive dramatically. Life rarely announces itself with thunder. More often, it changes us through ordinary Tuesdays. One email, one phone call, one conversation that begins with, "Can we talk?" And suddenly, the staircase he spent years climbing doesn't seem to lead anywhere. What hurts Arjun isn't only the loss, it's the question that follows. After everything I've done, why is this happening? Listen carefully. He isn't asking why the promotion was delayed. He's asking why the contract was broken. He believed effort guaranteed arrival. Life never made that promise. He did. This is where modern life quietly deepens the illusion. Every morning our phones greet us with stories of certainty. Wake up at 5. Read 100 books. Work while they sleep. Success is a choice. The message is everywhere. Control everything. Optimize everything. Master your habits. Discipline your mind. And you'll inevitably reach the life you deserve. There is wisdom hidden in discipline. There is beauty in consistency. But there is also danger, because somewhere between self-improvement and self-blame, we begin believing that every outcome belongs entirely to us. If success arrives, I earned it. If failure arrives, it must be my fault. But reality is rarely that simple. Success is never built by effort alone. It also depends on timing, health, opportunity, luck, geography, family, the economy, people we happen to meet, conversations we almost didn't have, doors we never even knew existed. The older I become, the more I realize that every successful person carries invisible advantages, and every struggling person carries invisible battles. We simply don't see them. We compare our entire life to someone else's highlight reel. Social media has become a museum of invisible contracts. Someone posts a new house. We don't merely admire it. Our mind quietly calculates. I'm the same age. I work just as hard. Why not me? Someone announces an engagement. Someone welcomes a child. Someone starts a business. Someone reaches 1 million subscribers. Someone travels the world. The comparison happens before we're even aware of it. Not because we're jealous, because we're measuring. Our mind is constantly asking, if they received this, where is mine? We forget that comparison doesn't measure reality. It measures stories. Stories stripped of struggle. Stories edited into perfection. We compare our behind the scenes to everyone else's final cut. And then we wonder why our life feels unfair. Relationships reveal this illusion even more quietly. Imagine someone who spends years loving another person with extraordinary patience. They remember anniversaries, support impossible dreams, stay during difficult seasons, forgive mistakes, choose understanding over pride. Then one evening they hear the sentence they never imagined, "I don't love you anymore." People often describe heartbreak as feeling abandoned, but beneath abandonment lies something even deeper: confusion. How could love disappear after everything we built? Because deep inside, we believed love behaved like mathematics. The more we gave, the more we should receive. But human hearts have never obeyed equations. Love is nurtured by choice, not obligation. You cannot purchase permanence with sacrifice. And realizing that can feel like losing the ground beneath your feet. There is another question I've often wondered. Why do we almost never ask, why me? When something beautiful happens, when a stranger saves our life, when a friend appears exactly when we need them, when we're born into a family that loves us, when our body heals, when an unexpected opportunity changes everything, when we narrowly avoid an accident we never even noticed. Rarely do we look toward the sky and whisper, why was I so fortunate? Instead, we accept blessings as though they naturally belong to us. Yet suffering feels like an error in the system. Perhaps this reveals something uncomfortable. We often see good fortune as our rightful inheritance, and hardship as an unfair interruption. But what if both are gifts we never truly control? What if neither success nor suffering ask permission before entering our lives? What if life has never been keeping score, only moving forward? These thoughts are difficult, not because they are pessimistic, but because they remove something we desperately crave: certainty. The certainty that if we do everything correctly, nothing can hurt us. Yet history tells a different story. The wisest have suffered, the kindest have been betrayed, the strongest have fallen, the most careful have still experienced loss. Not because goodness failed, but because goodness was never a shield against life's unpredictability. Perhaps we've been asking the wrong question all along. Not how do I make life fair, but how do I remain human when life isn't? Perhaps the hardest lesson life ever teaches us is not that pain exists. We learn that early. A scraped knee, a broken toy, the death of a pet, a goodbye we weren't ready for. Pain has always been part of the human story. What changes as we grow older is our relationship with it. As children, we cry because something hurts. As adults, we suffer because we believe it shouldn't have happened. There is a difference, a profound one. Pain is an experience. Unfairness is an interpretation. And interpretations have the power to imprison us far longer than the event itself. Years ago, psychologists conducted an experiment. Participants watched what they believed was an innocent person receiving painful electric shocks. The disturbing part wasn't the shocks, it was how the observers reacted. Unable to tolerate the idea that a good person could suffer for no reason, many participants began convincing themselves that the victim must somehow deserve it. Maybe they were careless. Maybe they weren't as innocent as they looked. Maybe they had done something wrong. The mind preferred blaming the victim over accepting randomness, because randomness is frightening. If terrible things happen without reason, then they could happen to us too. And suddenly the world feels much less predictable. We tell ourselves stories not because they're true, but because they're easier to live with. Perhaps you've done the same. Perhaps I have too. We hear someone lost everything. Immediately we wonder, did they make a bad investment? Someone's marriage ends. There must have been warning signs. Someone falls seriously ill. Maybe they ignored their health. Sometimes those explanations are true. Often they aren't. But our minds reach for them instinctively, not out of cruelty, out of self-protection. If every tragedy has a clear cause, then perhaps every tragedy can be avoided. It gives us the comforting illusion that life can be controlled, that if we are careful enough, disciplined enough, wise enough, we can negotiate with uncertainty. But uncertainty has never been interested in negotiation. There is a quiet freedom that arrives the day we stop asking life to explain itself. Not because we become indifferent, not because the pain disappears, but because we finally stop demanding that reality follow rules it never promised to follow. Imagine standing in the rain. One person looks at the sky and says, "Why is this happening to me?" Another simply opens an umbrella. The rain falls on both. The difference is not in the weather, it's in the relationship each person has with it. For years, I thought acceptance meant giving up. I thought it meant lowering expectations, settling, stopping the fight. But acceptance is none of those things. Acceptance is seeing reality clearly enough that you stop arguing with facts. It is the courage to say, this happened, not, this should never have happened. There is tremendous strength in that difference, because the first statement opens a door, the second builds a prison. Think about the strongest people you've ever met. Not the loudest, not the richest, not the most famous, the strongest. If you listen closely to their stories, you'll notice something. They rarely speak as though life owed them anything. Many of them have buried loved ones, lost businesses, started over, been betrayed, faced illnesses they never deserved. Yet somewhere along the journey, they stopped asking the universe to refund their suffering. Instead, they quietly began asking a different question. What can I build from here? That question changes everything. One question looks backward, the other creates a future. The ancient Stoic philosophers believed there was a simple distinction that could transform a person's life. Some things belong to us, many things do not. Our effort belongs to us. The outcome often does not. Our character belongs to us. Other people's opinions do not. Our choices belong to us. Chance does not. Most suffering begins when we confuse these two worlds. We exhaust ourselves trying to control weather that was never ours to command. Imagine holding a handful of sand. The tighter you squeeze, the more slips through your fingers. Life often behaves the same way. The harder we demand certainty, fairness, guarantees, the more anxious we become. But when the hand relaxes, it still doesn't control the sand. It simply stops fighting gravity. Perhaps peace isn't found by controlling life. Perhaps it's found by no longer asking life to become something it has never been. I often think about that old man outside the hospital, the one sitting quietly on the wooden bench. For years, I imagined he was asking, why me? Maybe he was, or maybe he had already moved beyond that question. Maybe he had reached the place most of us spend a lifetime searching for. The place where grief still exists, but resentment slowly fades. Where tears still fall, but they are no longer arguing with reality. Where love remains, even after loss. Sometimes I wonder if wisdom isn't the absence of pain. Maybe wisdom is the absence of resistance to pain. If you're listening to this today, perhaps life has been unfair to you. Perhaps you've worked harder than everyone around you and still feel invisible. Perhaps you've loved someone who couldn't love you back. Perhaps you're carrying responsibilities nobody sees. Perhaps you're exhausted from believing that if you just become a little better, a little kinder, a little stronger, life will finally become fair. If that's you, I hope you hear this. Your effort was never wasted. Your kindness was never meaningless. Your honesty was never a mistake. But their value does not depend on whether life rewarded them. A flower does not become less beautiful because nobody stopped to admire it. The sun does not refuse to rise because yesterday was cloudy. The ocean does not stop creating waves because some of them never reach the shore. Nature has never measured its worth by applause. Perhaps neither should we. Maybe the question was never why me. Maybe that question was too small for a life as vast and unpredictable as yours. Maybe the better question has always been, now that this has happened, who will I choose to become? Not because every tragedy carries a hidden lesson. Sometimes suffering is simply suffering. Sometimes there is no silver lining waiting patiently behind the clouds. But there is always one thing that remains untouched. The person you decide to be after the storm. Life can take your plans. It can take your certainty. It can even take the future you imagined. But it cannot decide whether disappointment makes you bitter or compassionate, whether loss closes your heart or deepens it, whether uncertainty fills you with fear or teaches you humility. Those choices remain quietly, stubbornly yours. Perhaps peace begins the day we stop asking the universe to justify itself. Perhaps freedom begins when we stop keeping score, when we stop believing that every act of goodness deserves an immediate reward, when we stop measuring our lives against someone else's chapter 10 while we're still living, chapter 3. And perhaps love, real love, for life, for people, for ourselves, begins when we continue choosing what is right, not because it guarantees a better tomorrow, but because it reflects who we are today. So the next time life whispers disappointment into your ear, and you feel those familiar 3 words rising once again, pause for just a moment, take a slow breath, and instead of asking, "Why me?" ask something infinitely more powerful. What now? Because life may never answer the first question, but the second one has the power to change the rest of your story.